In the year 1934, the enigmatic figure known as the Sleeping Prophet, Edgar Cayce, uttered words that at the time were shrouded in mystery and largely misunderstood by the masses. He spoke of the emergence and eventual downfall of a formidable leader, a visionary who would construct towering edifices, a man of extraordinary ambition who would captivate the hearts of millions, yet be driven by forces beyond his own comprehension. Cayce forewarned that this influential builder would rise to the pinnacle of power, not through the means of warfare or by inheriting a throne, but through the collective voice and will of the people themselves. Yet, in the same breath, he issued a grave warning. He predicted that the builder's empire would not be brought down by external adversaries, but would instead disintegrate from within, collapsing under its own weight. "He shall be judged by his own actions," Cayce murmured in his trance-like state. And the very people who once elevated him to power would rise against him, leading to his ultimate downfall. Fast forward nearly a century, and it seems as though Cayce's prophecy reverberates through our current world. The headlines, the public hearings, the societal divisions, it all feels hauntingly familiar, as if the prophecy has transformed from a mere warning into a reflection of our present reality. However, what Cayce envisioned following the fall is even more remarkable. He did not merely predict the collapse of a leader. He foresaw the emergence of a new figure, born out of chaos, who would be destined to mend a fractured and wounded nation. The calendar marked the year as 1934, a time of uncertainty and transformation, when the world seemed to teeter on the edge of great change. In his quiet Virginia Beach study, Edgar Cayce, known as the Sleeping Prophet, prepared himself for another session. He allowed his consciousness to drift away, entering a profound trance state that would open the door to visions beyond the ordinary. As Cayce slipped deeper into trance, a gentle sea breeze stirred the curtains, filling the room with a sense of anticipation. The air itself seemed to hum with a mysterious energy, as if the unseen world was drawing closer. Gladys Davis, his devoted stenographer, sat nearby, her pencil poised above the paper. She watched intently as Cayce's voice began to shift, his words taking on a tone that was no longer entirely his own, something otherworldly, as if channeled from a distant realm. Through Cayce's lips came a vision. "I perceive a figure before me, the builder of towers. He is a man surrounded by the glow of gold and the flicker of flame, his presence both commanding and enigmatic. This man rises above his peers, constructing his legacy higher and higher, yet the foundation beneath him is nothing but shifting sand, unstable, uncertain, and destined to give way." The only sound in the room was Cayce's slow, deliberate breathing, echoing the tension and gravity of the moment. Gladys barely dared to move, so thick was the atmosphere. This builder will inspire both adoration and contempt. Some will see him as a visionary, while others will view him as a threat. He will be a figure who divides the hearts of many. His name will be spoken by countless voices, echoing through the streets and across the land. He will become a topic of endless debate, his reputation growing larger than the man himself. But when the time of reckoning arrives, his throne, his seat of power, will not be toppled by violence or disease. Instead, it will tremble under the immense weight of truth as secrets come to light and reality can no longer be denied. Gladys, her curiosity piqued, and her voice barely above a whisper, asked, "Who is this man you see?" But Cayce, still deep in trance, offered no direct answer. His silence only deepened the mystery, leaving Gladys and those present to wonder. "He wears the crown not of a king but of a merchant, one who deals in commerce and influence, whose power comes from trade and wealth rather than birthright. He claims to speak for those who have been overlooked and forgotten, yet in his pursuit of material success, he loses sight of the deeper spiritual truths. In time, the people, those he once claimed to represent, will rise up, not out of hatred, but as a result of the natural law of karma. He will be called to answer for his actions, facing a judgment that he himself has brought about. As Cayce's words grew heavier, the room seemed to darken, the shadows deepening as if reflecting the gravity of his prophecy. And when the builder finally falls, another will take his place. This new figure will not be adorned in gold, but will be as solid and enduring as stone, quiet, steadfast and unassuming on the outside, yet radiating a hidden inner light that will guide the way forward. Edgar Cayce once spoke of a house long divided, a place where unity had been lost and wounds ran deep. From this fractured home, he prophesied, would emerge a leader unlike any before, a figure whose purpose was not to dominate or command, but to bring healing and restoration to a broken people. For many years, these remarkable words lay hidden, tucked away within the vast collection of Cayce's unpublished readings and notes. It wasn't until a dedicated researcher, tirelessly combing through the archives, uncovered this forgotten prophecy that its relevance to our present era began to emerge. The researcher was struck by the uncanny similarities between Cayce's vision and the challenges facing our world today. Compelled by the urgency of Cayce's message, the researcher shared these findings with others, believing that the world needed to awaken to the possibility of hope. In times of uncertainty and upheaval, he felt it was vital for people to remember the strength of the human spirit and to hold fast to the promise of renewal. According to Cayce's notes, the prophecy spoke of a woman destined to rise when the nation was at its most exhausted, when the collective spirit was worn thin and the people longed for comfort and guidance. In this time of turmoil, Cayce foresaw that the people would cry out for justice, their voices echoing through the streets. Yet, he warned, many would be uncertain of what true justice even meant, lost in confusion and longing for clarity. The hearts of the people, Cayce wrote, would be torn between the memories of what once was and the fears of what might come. Old allegiances and loyalties, once held tightly, would begin to unravel, their symbols and banners literally and figuratively crumbling in the hands of those who clung to the past. In this hour of widespread confusion, when trust in traditional leaders had faded and hope seemed distant, Cayce described the arrival of this extraordinary woman. She would not come as a conqueror, wielding power or force, nor would she deceive with empty promises or harsh words. Instead, her presence would be marked by sincerity and a quiet strength. She would be known as the Mender, a healer who patiently and compassionately worked to repair the torn fabric of society. Her gift would be the ability to bring together what had been broken, to bridge divides, and to help people rediscover their shared humanity. Unlike those who sought authority through command, her influence would stem from her deep compassion and empathy. She would comfort the grieving, guide the lost, and inspire others to care for one another. Cayce cautioned that the powerful and established leaders might dismiss or ridicule her, unable to recognize the quiet power she possessed. Yet, he insisted, it would be the weary and the disheartened who would truly hear her message and find hope in her words. Through her compassion and understanding, those who listened would discover a sense of peace and rest, even in the midst of chaos. Do you believe that such a leader, one who heals rather than divides, could truly emerge in our world today? Your perspective could inspire others to hope for a brighter future. Long before the dawn of her ascent, Edgar Cayce envisioned a time marked by profound unrest and upheaval, a chapter in history he called the Age of Reckoning. According to Cayce, before the emergence of a new leader, the world would be shaken to its core, not only by physical disturbances, but by a deep collective stirring of the human conscience. The very ground beneath our feet would seem unstable, yet the true trembling would be felt within the hearts and minds of people everywhere. Structures built on pride and hubris The towers that once symbolized human achievement would begin to fracture and fall. Those who placed their faith in material wealth would watch as their riches faded away, their gold and treasures reduced to nothing but dust and memory. In this era of confusion, society itself would become fragmented. People would fill the streets, their voices raised in passionate debate, each person convinced that their own perspective was the only one that mattered. Amidst the noise, many would find themselves isolated, wandering through a fog of uncertainty and doubt. Even families would not be spared, as brother would turn against brother, and old bonds would be tested by suspicion and anger. The proclamations of leaders, once powerful and inspiring, would lose their meaning, echoing through empty halls, heard by few and believed by even fewer. Cayce described a world where the sky would be alive with fire and thunder, a time when technology would allow people to communicate instantly, speaking through flashes of lightning and waves of energy. Yet despite this unprecedented connection, humanity would struggle to hear the quiet voice of the spirit within, lost amid the noise and spectacle. Nature itself would reflect the sorrow of this age. Rivers would overflow, swollen with the tears of a grieving world, and the earth would seem to weep beneath the weight of human cruelty and neglect. The storms outside would mirror the storms within. In their desperation, many would turn to charismatic figures and self-proclaimed prophets, seeking answers and comfort. Yet, Cayce warned, true wisdom would not be found in the loudest voices or the brightest lights. Instead, truth would retreat into the shadows, waiting patiently for those willing to search their own hearts and question their own motives. Out of the silence and confusion, a gentle whisper would begin to rise, a voice not seeking power or recognition, but guided by a sense of purpose. This quiet presence would move among the crowds, almost unnoticed, yet carrying the seeds of transformation. The beginnings of renewal would not be found in grand palaces or centers of authority. Instead, they would emerge quietly in the most humble of places, in the fields where farmers toil, in the empty classrooms where teachers prepare, and in the gentle touch of healers tending to the suffering. The true rebirth of the world, Cayce believed, would take root not among the powerful, but within the souls of ordinary people. Those who live simply, who pray quietly, and who nurture hope like seeds planted in fertile ground. According to Edgar Cayce, from the faintest whisper of hope in humanity's darkest hour, there would emerge a figure he called the Woman of Light. She would not be born into comfort or luxury, but would instead rise from hardship and adversity, her character forged in the fires of struggle. The pain and suffering of her people would be etched upon her, visible in the scars she bore. These would become her crown, a symbol of her resilience and compassion. She would be intimately acquainted with sorrow, experiencing loss and grief firsthand. And it would be through these trials that she would gain profound wisdom and understanding. Living in a world torn by division, she would come to know the pain of separation and conflict. Yet, from this, she would develop a deep empathy for all sides. And when she finally spoke, her words would have the power to calm even the most turbulent storms, causing chaos and anger to subside, if only for a moment. Through her presence and actions, she would remind countless people of the true meaning of belonging, rekindling a sense of unity and shared purpose that many had forgotten. Cayce did not describe her as a traditional ruler or monarch, but rather as a healer and restorer, someone who would mend what was broken and bring people together. Through her influence, people would come to realize that the era of kings and absolute rulers was over, and that a new age of kinship, cooperation, and mutual respect was dawning. Then Cayce's prophecy delivered one of its most chilling and memorable lines. When the world is at its most exhausted, when the land is barren and hope seems to be nothing more than a faint ember smouldering in the ashes, Cayce urged us not to seek salvation in thunderous displays of power, but to look instead for the quiet, steady flame, the gentle light that persists, even in the deepest darkness. It makes us wonder, could this quiet flame, this woman of light, already be living among us, her presence subtle yet profound? Is it possible that the Mender Cayce foresaw is preparing to step forward even now, as our world shakes with conflict and division, ready to help heal and unite us? Edgar Cayce described the era that would follow the emergence of the Mender as a profound and transformative period he called the Age of Renewal, a time unlike any that had come before, marked by deep healing and collective awakening. According to Cayce, when the Mender finally steps into her destined role, the darkness that had long enveloped the world would begin to dissipate. The heavy shadow that once seemed immovable would slowly lift, allowing hope and clarity to return to the hearts of many. Humanity, he said, would experience a collective awakening, as if rousing from a deep and exhausting slumber. Though their eyes might still carry the fatigue of past struggles, they would now see the world with a renewed sense of purpose and understanding. In this new dawn, people would look upon one another not with suspicion or fear, but with empathy and recognition. Each person would see in their neighbor a mirror of their own hopes, fears, and desires, a shared longing for connection and peace. The flames of hatred and division, which had once raged unchecked, would gradually subside. This would not happen because every individual suddenly became virtuous, but rather because the ignorance that once fueled animosity would lose its grip, making it harder for destruction to take root. Cayce warned that the very institutions of power would be shaken to their core. The grand halls and corridors of authority, built on foundations of arrogance and self-interest, would tremble as their weaknesses were exposed. Yet from the rubble of these fallen structures, new spaces would emerge, places dedicated to service and cooperation. Leadership would no longer be seized through force or ambition, but would be entrusted by the community to those who had earned their trust. The old divisions of ownership and possessiveness would begin to dissolve. The language of separation, mine and yours, would be replaced by a spirit of unity, as people embraced the idea of ours, sharing resources and responsibilities for the common good. Barriers that once kept communities apart would be transformed into pathways of connection. The walls that divided would literally and figuratively become bridges, allowing people to cross over former divides and find common ground. As human hearts and minds changed, so too would the natural world. The air would become cleaner, the waters would flow more gently, and the earth, long burdened by exploitation and greed, would finally have a chance to heal and breathe freely once more. In this renewed world, children would grow up speaking of unity and togetherness, not as distant ideals, but as living memories, truths they experienced every day, reborn in their laughter and play. Edgar Cayce envisioned a time when new and wondrous lights would grace the heavens, illuminations not born from the fires of conflict, but from the dawning of higher understanding and wisdom. These celestial signs, he believed, would herald a profound shift in human consciousness, signaling the arrival of an era where knowledge and enlightenment would shine brighter than ever before. In this new age, Cayce spoke of a subtle yet powerful energy that would flow through the hands of those who had learned to balance the material and the spiritual. These individuals, attuned to the harmony between the physical world and the unseen realms, would become channels for healing, inspiration, and transformation, touching lives not just with their actions, but with the very energy they radiate. Where once science and faith stood apart, often in opposition, Cayce foresaw a reconciliation, a coming together of minds and hearts. He predicted that the day would come when scientists and spiritual seekers would sit side by side, sharing discoveries and insights, recognizing that both paths ultimately seek the same truth. In this unity, the boundaries between reason and belief would dissolve, and humanity would advance as one. At the heart of this awakening would stand the Mender, a figure not defined by authority or power, but by her willingness to serve as a vessel for something greater. She would walk humbly, guiding the world into a new dawn, always aware that her influence was not her own, but a reflection of a higher purpose working through her. Her leadership would be marked by selflessness and a deep sense of responsibility to the greater good. Even as her era drew to a close and her presence faded from the halls of power, the impact of her actions would endure. Her legacy would linger like a gentle light, illuminating the path for those who followed, reminding them of the values she embodied and the changes she set in motion. Through her compassion and courage, she would sow a seed deep within the hearts of her people, a living memory of what it means to care for one another, and the bravery required to act with kindness, even when the world seems indifferent or forgetful. This seed would inspire future generations to nurture empathy and solidarity, no matter the challenges they faced. From this single act of planting hope, the nations of the world would begin to turn their gaze once more toward the land that was once fractured and divided. There they would witness the emergence of a new beacon, not one that called for conquest or domination, but one that radiated compassion, unity, and the promise of a better future for all. Out of turmoil and confusion, clarity would be born. From the ashes of division, understanding would arise. And as the proud fell, making way for humility and justice, a new era would dawn. One defined not by the might of rulers, but by the strength of those who choose to heal, unite, and uplift. Edgar Cayce's vision serves as a profound reminder that the essence of humanity is not bound by time or circumstance, but is instead an eternal force that endures through every age. In his prophecies, he spoke of the builder who once stood tall, only to eventually fall, and of the mender who quietly rose to heal what was broken. Through both the builder and the mender, Cayce believed the divine presence was always at work, subtle, unseen, yet ever present, interlacing the end of one era with the beginning of another, as if weaving a single unbroken thread that connects all of human history. According to Cayce, the so-called Age of Renewal is not simply a period marked on a calendar, but a profound turning point in the human spirit. This transformation begins not with grand events, but in the quiet moment when just one heart chooses the path of peace instead of clinging to pride. Every ascent to greatness and every inevitable decline, every moment of victory and every tear shed in defeat, were never truly about the pursuit of power or the possession of thrones, but rather about the ongoing evolution and growth of the human soul, each experience shaping us, teaching us, and guiding us toward greater understanding. The builder, in Cayce's narrative, demonstrated how far human ambition and vision can reach, how we can strive to create, to innovate, and to leave our mark upon the world. Yet, he also showed us the delicate nature of pride and how easily it can be shattered, leaving behind only the remnants of what once was. The mender, on the other hand, teaches that real strength is not found in domination or conquest, but in the gentle act of restoration, of healing what has been broken and nurturing new beginnings from the ashes of the old. Together, the stories of the builder and the mender reveal two essential halves of a single timeless lesson: that destruction and creation, when united by wisdom and compassion, become the very foundation for renewal and the ongoing journey of the human spirit. When Edgar Cayce spoke of his prophecy, he was not simply referring to the fate of nations or the rise and fall of powerful leaders. His vision reached far deeper, touching the very heart of humanity's journey. At its core, Cayce's message was a call to awaken, a plea for a time when people everywhere would grow weary of the endless divisions that keep us apart, whether those divisions are political, cultural, or personal. He envisioned a world where ideals like truth, compassion, and unity would no longer be distant dreams or empty words, but would instead become real, tangible forces, guiding our actions, shaping our communities, and transforming our daily lives. Cayce foresaw a pivotal moment, a crossroads, where humanity would once again be faced with a profound choice. One road leading us further into conflict, fear and separation, and the other offering a path toward understanding, healing, and a true rebirth of the human spirit. Importantly, Cayce did not speak of this turning point as something that would happen in a distant, unimaginable future. He insisted that this moment of decision would arrive much sooner than most expected. According to Cayce, the crossroads would appear in our own era, in the midst of our own lives, as we face the challenges and opportunities of the present day. And now, here we are, living in the very moment he described, standing at the threshold of change, surrounded by the echoes of his vision and the choices it demands of us. The real question we must ask ourselves is not whether Cayce's prophecy has come to pass, but rather, what role will each of us choose to play as this prophecy unfolds? Will we step forward as active participants in shaping our collective future? Will we, like the Mender in Cayce's stories, help to rebuild our world with empathy, humility, and the courage to heal what has been broken? Or will we repeat the mistakes of the past, reconstructing the same towers of pride and division, only to watch them crumble once more under the weight of our own hubris? Cayce's final warning was clear. The responsibility for our future does not rest with kings, presidents, or any single authority. Instead, it belongs to each and every soul, to all of us, together, at this crossroads of now. The dawn of a new era, what Cayce called the Age of Renewal, does not arrive with grand announcements or sweeping proclamations. Instead, it quietly takes root in the stillness, in the gentle hush before the world awakens, in the sacred instant when a single heart chooses compassion over resentment and dares to offer love where once only bitterness and division resided. According to Cayce, that transformative moment is not some distant hope. It is unfolding right now, in this very present, as each of us makes our choices. If you feel the spark of this message within you, help ensure its flame continues to burn brightly and reach others who may be searching for hope. Before this video disappears from your feed, tap the like button. It's a simple act, but it helps keep this message alive and visible. Share this video with friends, family, or anyone you know who is seeking meaning amidst the confusion and uncertainty of our times. Your support helps us reveal the hidden threads and profound connections that unite humanity across time and space. Your kindness truly makes a difference. Thank you for being part of this journey. And always remember, the Age of Renewal is not a distant dream. It is already unfolding right here and now, if we have the courage to choose it together.